Hey everybody, what's going on? It's Wednesday. It's time for a new episode of LonsTV. I know I usually do Web Series Wednesday on Wednesdays, and I watch a new web show, but traffic was so insane in LA tonight, I just got home, and I did not have a chance to watch a new web series today, and there have been a couple times where I'll just throw one on and I'll watch it, and then I'll immediately go into a review, but I like to let them percolate a little. I like to let it all simmer around and take some notes and come up with some really thoughtful kind of insights, and that takes a little time, and I don't really feel like I've got the time this evening to do that, so I'll do Web Series Thursday or something. I'll get to it later in the week. My dog just barked for some reason. He's upset. He wants Web Series Wednesday. But yeah, the traffic tonight in LA, I mean, it was raining, so I know everybody else in the country is probably sick of hearing us in LA whine about every time it rains, the traffic goes from, like, bad to just, like, impossibly crazy bad. Like, what's worse than a clusterfuck? Like, there's clusterfuck, and then there's, like, the next level, where it's like, you kind of wish it was just a clusterfuck. That's what it was like, just complete gridlock. I was in traffic today to go to and from all the places I had to go, was like 4 hours, which is almost like my full day. I mean, it's close to like what I worked total on the day. Just commuting. I say in LA we should start referring to this as rain-na-rock. You know, there was like rain-pocalypse or stormageddon or something to match the East Coast, or they always get funny storm names. And I think rain-na-rock for a few reasons. One, it's Norse mythology, which we don't usually get to reference, and which is cool. And two, it actually has a dual meaning, because on Ragnarok, the Norse, like, Judgment Day or whatever, the whole world floods. So it's good. It matches up well when it's raining. But anyway, it was like, seriously, it was apocalyptic in LA tonight trying to get home. Like, I went, I think, between the 10 freeway and Franklin, which is the street that I live off of, which is like half of the city. I think I was on every east-west going street at some point. I was on the 10, I tried Pico, I tried Olympic, I tried Wilshire, I tried Santa Monica, I tried Melrose, I tried Fountain, I was on DeLongpre for a little while, I was on Hollywood. Like, I literally tried every street going east-west, and they were all just completely stopped. I think at one point I was on Santa Monica Boulevard for about 10 minutes, and like nobody moved. And you get this, there's this like sinking feeling of like, I'm legitimately never going to get out of this traffic jam. Like, I will have to at some point make a decision about just like leaving and surviving, like going to get food or to move, you know, my bowels or whatever, or giving up and giving up my car. Like, I'm literally going to be faced with that decision in like 8-10 hours, and we're not ever going to move anywhere. Like what could even, you're thinking about what head could even be causing like 4 or 5 cycles of a light to go and you don't get to move at all? Like, it's just, is there like one shopping center that just like all the people are coming out of there and there's no room for the cars behind them? Anyway, so here's what I propose. I think I have a solution. I think the last 200,000 people or so who moved into LA need to move back out. Because, you know, it's like the last in, first out, you know, like when people are getting fired. I think it's the same kind of concept here. There's some lovely neighborhoods near Phoenix, Scottsdale, the entire city of Detroit, Michigan. Like, you're always reading about these places where, like, the communities are just shutting down because everybody moved out. I mean, like Central Florida, where everybody lost their homes. And I don't mean to be callous. Like, it's a great tragedy. People are losing their homes. It's a down economy. I understand. And I'm saying this is perfect. Like, there's all these people in LA, and you know, people would say, like, oh, but the jobs are all in LA. They can't go there. But most people in LA aren't working. I mean, you go at 2 o'clock into any coffee bean and tea leaf, and, you know, there's people pretending to work on screenplays and really there to, like, be seen. And then there's the baristas working. And then everybody else is just kind of like, man, what? It's 2:15. It's Tuesday. I'm trying to relax. I'm trying to take a load off. I need a break. So, you know, none of these jobs would be lost. They can go, you know, write blog posts in Scottsdale or whatever. So that's what I recommend. I think it's really going to help, and it's going to revive these communities that are going through all this problem. There's going to be a sudden influx of, you know, people who really want to see, like, art house films and buy Mac stuff. It's going to be great. It's going to be great for them. So anyway, to my actual review, that's why I'm not doing it. That's a 4.5-minute lead into why I'm not reviewing a web series. Now here's my actual review of the American film Let Me In. It's a remake of a book. There was a book called Let the Right One In that was a Swedish book. So it's a Swedish book. It's not called Let the Right One In. It's called like Skern de Fleur de Brun de Rur. But anyway, the translation is Let the Right One In. And then they did a Swedish film based on the book that was a big hit internationally. It made it to this country. I saw it, I think, theatrically in this country. And, you know, it got around and geeks and nerds because it's a vampire movie and it's really kind of clever and well done. It really hit a chord with you know, like art house fans and nerds and hipsters. So now they made this American remake, and it's Matt Reeves, the guy who did Cloverfield, although this is nothing like Cloverfield. And it's very similar. The American film and the Swedish film, they sort of match. I mean, the style is the same, the kind of storytelling is the same, and they really haven't changed much of the details of the plot. The main one I can think of is there's a detective character. I never know how to pronounce this actor's name. Elias Koteas? Something like that. Anyway, that guy, he's been in a bunch of stuff. I always remember him. I think the first thing I, like, noticed with him is that really silly Denzel Washington supernatural thriller Fallen, where there's, like, a demon that's taunting Denzel Washington, and it can jump from body to body, and it's originally in this guy who's in jail. We assume this guy is like this crazy psycho serial killer, and he's played by Elias Koteas or whatever, and Denzel thinks that, like, that's the bad guy, and then the spirit escapes him when he's executed, and starts jumping around at all sorts of people. Denzel is like, so the beginning of the movie is like they executed a guy who was innocent, he just had a demon in him, and then the demon jumps all around, and it has a really hilariously insane twist ending. It's one of those, like, movies that's so schlocky it's actually a lot of fun. Denzel's done a few of those, Virtuosity being another one. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. So that guy, he plays a detective in Let Me In, who takes over a lot of the part that was played by... There's still a couple that's in the same apartment complex with the two main characters who appeared in the Swedish film, but that guy had a much bigger role in the Swedish film, and that character has sort of merged with this detective character. But that's, like, you know, that's details of the storytelling. It does lead to one really great scene with the detective towards the end of the film that is not in the Swedish version, that's in the American one. That's a really great scene, and I could see, like, it was almost worth adding that character just to get that moment, and it's really well done. But for the most part, it's a very faithful adaptation. I think that's why people weren't, like, upset. It doesn't, like, take the story into, like, some crazy new direction. It really does play it close to what I assume, I haven't read the book, but what I assume the book was like. And the story basically is about a young boy. He's bullied at school. He's alienated. He lives with his single mom. There's a dad in the Swedish film that isn't in the American one at all. And he sort of forms this weird friendship with this, what he assumes is a young girl who lives in the same apartment complex, and he and we in the audience come to find out is actually like a very old vampire, and the man she's living with is not her father, but some man who's been helping her out and killing people for her benefit so she can feed and doesn't get exposed. And in this movie, that part is played by Richard Jenkins, even though it's a pretty small, thankless role. So it's interesting they got Richard Jenkins, who's a great actor, to come in and do it, and he does a really nice job. And I don't want to have, there's a big spoiler I could give away. That's something else that they added in the American version that I think is really provocative, but I won't say. But there's something that's very ambiguous about the nature of the relationship between these two kids, or between this kid and this vampire, in the original one, and it's much more on the nose in the American version. Like, the American version is really pointing out, like, that the young boy, the sort of protagonist, is sort of being used. Whereas in the original one, it's much more ambiguous. You could kind of play it both ways. And I think that's interesting. The one strike I'd have against the American movie is the cinematography, more specifically the use of color. There's actually a lot of great camera work. It's well shot. It's well executed. There's a lot of great, like, sequences. But the use of color, it's all done, the entire film. Literally, like, every scene is done in this reddish-brown, like, copper tone, like almost the color of this shirt that I'm wearing now. And it's so overwhelming, and it gets claustrophobic after a while. You just, like, once you start to notice it, you notice every single scene is shot with this exact same color. It's almost a monochromatic film, and I gotta say, I don't really get it. Like, I don't know what that was necessarily enhancing about the movie, and it almost becomes a distraction. And I mean, if there was, like, some clever play on something, but all I can come up with is, like, yeah, it's dark, and it's sort of blood-colored, and because it's a vampire movie, and that's cheesy, and I'm sure that Reeves and Greig Fraser, who was the cinematographer, had some sort of larger purpose in making the whole film look that way, but I was just kind of irritated by it after a while. And it just felt like a distraction. Like if there was a little bit more natural use of color, I would have paid less attention to the colors and more attention to, like, the story and the characters. So anyway, that's sort of my knock on it. Not a deal breaker by any means. I still really enjoyed the film. Definitely worth watching, especially if you're a fan of the Swedish one, because it's interesting to see like a sort of a different take on the material, but a very slightly different take on the material. So you really notice like the small nuances of what was changed. So that's today's LonsTV. Busted 10 minutes, it looks like. So thank goodness YouTube allows me to go 15, 20 now, as long as I want. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I will do my best to do a web series Thursday or Friday this week, so stay tuned for that. Thanks.